extradition. But can you take us back, Richard, to the case and summarize for us what's happening and what happened and how we got to the point where we are now?
Well, yeah, I'll touch on that in a second. But just one thing about Julian Assange, which got brought up in court, is that he is diagnosed with Asperger's. And I don't know anyone like him in the sense that he has an extreme need to just dish out the truth. They've won so many awards, WikiLeaks, over the years, journalism awards, not hacking awards. And it's because he's just hell-bent on getting stuff out there. And he's non-partisan as well. He doesn't really care who he's upsetting, which is obviously not to his advantage. But there's no side to him in that. He absolutely just puts it out there. And everything I've seen about him in the media that is set up to sort of vilify him and make him into this pariah. You're right about this whole redaction thing. He was very responsible over that. But it's everything right down to the situation and, with the sex scandal and all that sort of stuff. That was all part of the ruse as well. I mean, you just talked to Neil Meltzer, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, who's written a book on it. And the whole thing is a big ruse. This is a guy who's just been completely vilified and victimized with lies and smear. He hasn't got it in him to lie.
Interesting.
And he's very responsible as well. He's a family man. And like you say, you found out that he was actually doing everything he could to be responsible. But it was a particular journalist in the national media that published a book, not to name names from the show, but anyway, not Julian.
Yeah. So,
I mean, the whole thing got hot, obviously, back in 2010. He spent over a decade, in the Ecuadorian embassy, and they ended up doing him over in the end. They took the money, decided to side with America. What the hell is political asylum if suddenly they get a check and throw you on the street?
So let's go back to that moment before the embassy. So he's. How did he end up? Remind all the viewers. How did he end up seeking asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy? Was it for the extradition to the US case? It wasn't, was it? It was to the Sweden. Was it Sweden or?
Yeah, he knew time's up on Sweden, and there was a whole lot of freedom of information stuff, and to name names, Keir Starmer was obviously involved, and when he was head of CPS, and they just said go get him. Basically, I mean, they're just part of this whole sort of American job on finishing him off, and that's what happened. And he just knew that if that happened, and he was fitted up for sex crimes, then smear is just there's a catalogue of ways to really vilify and destroy someone's reputation, and sex scandal is one of the number one or number two in the list, I would say. And he knew that was going to happen, whatever he tried to do, and he thought, no, I'm not having it, and he went and protected himself.
And what was you mentioned Keir Starmer? Now Keir Starmer, leader of the UK opposition, the Labour Party. At the time, Keir Starmer was head of the CPS, wasn't he? He was head of the Crown Prosecution Service.
That's right.
And what was his role in this Assange situation?
I guess he's just aiding and abetting and supporting the whole transition of him going over and seeing justice over in Sweden, basically. So they were just party to encouraging the whole thing to happen. I mean, the legal side, when you talk to Stella, she'll go into the nuance of it because she is a lawyer.
I hope you do. I hope she hasn't agreed yet. I'll make that clear.
Hasn't she? Oh, well, she wrote to you at least, so she's one step in the right direction. But the whole thing really has been in a bizarre way, because the United Nations has said he's free, he should walk free. There's no right to hold him whatsoever. It's America leaning on Britain, and Britain kind of bending the rules beyond international law to do whatever America wants. So CPS, whatever. I mean, the court's over here as well. The whole thing's just, I don't want to sound too much of a scandal merchant, but I mean, the whole thing's just bizarre. The whole thing's bizarre. And how do you get a situation where the judge barrister says he's mentally unfit to go and be extradited, and then suddenly on appeal that's overturned? It's ridiculous. But what new evidence has decided he's not a suicide risk then?
Yeah. Are you worried that Keir Starmer, by media accounts at least, is lining himself up to be the PM, and if media accounts are to believe, which of course, we take that with a pinch of salt, but if media accounts are to be believed, that he will become PM in the next election, because the current PM, Liz Truss, isn't as popular as she may like to think. So if that's all to be believed, Keir Starmer becomes PM. Does that change anything materially in the case?
Well, I think we know whose side Keir Starmer's on. I mean, but you would say that the Conservatives are on the other side as well. But even more so Keir Starmer. I mean, it was even Boris Johnson's parting shot to call Keir Starmer out by name as, a vessel of the deep state. I mean, I actually thought I'd never hear a British Prime Minister use those words. Did you? I'm thinking, have I just read that correctly? Boris Johnson just said Keir Starmer's part of the deep state. So I think the idea that he'd be on the first plane, I mean, there's still a legal process to go through, though. I mean, the United Nations are saying it's illegal what's happening to him. There's the European Court of Human Rights as another option. If this latest appeal doesn't, stop him going and not stop him flying off. But the whole thing's been a big delay mechanism, I think. I mean, his rights to publish are enshrined in law, and this whole extradition, to America, it's very political, and that's very obvious. And when it comes down to it, that's just wrong on every level, and that's why it's one of the biggest cases in the world, because it's just alarmed everybody. And it's just lit up a flight panel of people all around the world. I mean, this thing tomorrow, the human wrap around Parliament and over the bridges and back again. It's been paralleled in other parts of the world as well, from America to Australia. But this has been going on for a while. It's the biggest show in town in terms of freedom of information and right to publish. I mean, if Julian Assange goes down, we all go down in terms of knowing what the hell is going on. I mean, apart from Maajid Nawaz, who's with us today, and people like Joe Rogan, who else is out there actually delivering the goods? Because that's what Assange did, in raw form. He didn't try and spin it or editorialize it. It was just copy and paste, just raw. That was the reality of what's going on, and no one can handle it. That's the problem. So it's just sort of kept them busy and delayed for as long. My biggest fear is that the big plan is to play on this whole foreshadowed suicide risk malarkey that keeps coming up. And what a surprise if he dies in a prison in USA, if he gets over there. I mean, I said that on GB News. I said, and I stand by that, because if he goes over there, I mean, there's already a case where CIA have been, found, they haven't been convicted of it, but I mean, Pompeo has been asked to appear in court for an attempt at murdering Julian Assange, and that would have been very convenient, to be honest.
An attempted assassination.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's all out there, that stuff.
This is verified, or is this a suspicion?
Well, it's all in evidence as part of the court hearing, and Pompeo has been called to a hearing in Spain, and they'll deny it till the cows come home. They're not going to go and put their hands up and say that, but I mean, the evidence is strong. I mean, you and I have spoken before, Maajid, about this whole sort of grey area. Intelligence agencies don't follow normal rules, but they just certainly don't want a spotlight put on their activity. But if it can be made to look like Assange got really, really, really depressed in prison because he just thought, I've got no options, and then he dies in a sort of Epstein-style suicide, it will be quite convenient. I think if he gets on that plane, his life's at risk, to be honest.